Harry is going bankrupt. This is a guy that needs $25 million now. The big name sponsor is now pulling out. The prince is in big financial trouble. She tells me that he made money from the book Spare and the Netflix deal, but the cash is running out, and it's running out fast, and his long-term future is bleak.
For years, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle presented the world with a story about freedom. Freedom from palace pressure, freedom from royal rules, freedom to create a massive global brand completely on their own terms. But now, behind the Montecito mansion, behind the streaming deals, behind the polished social media relaunches and luxury image campaigns, a much more complicated situation is starting to show itself. One tied to shrinking business partnerships, fading public support, rising legal expenses, public criticism, and financial pressure so intense that many commentators are openly questioning how long the Sussex brand can keep operating at this level. And the timing could not be worse, because right as reports claim Harry's speaking fees have dropped from nearly $1 million per appearance to somewhere around $50,000, several other problems are stacking up fast. At the same moment Spotify stepped away, at the same moment major Hollywood connections appeared to cool off quietly, the one organization still strongly connected to Harry's public image, Invictus, is now facing one of the toughest periods in its history. A major sponsor reportedly appears ready to leave. People are beginning to ask difficult questions about spending. Public funding has entered the conversation. Media attention is growing stronger. And if Invictus loses momentum, Harry may lose the final major platform still supporting his public role.
This financial and royal expert tells me that Harry is on financial life support. The business partnerships are disappearing. The broadcasting career is non-existent. Don't forget that Spotify, who are the biggest podcast platform in the world, called Harry and Meghan, and I quote, a pair of effing grifters.
This no longer looks like just another royal dispute. It is turning into a much bigger story about image, money, influence, and the reality that can hit when celebrity branding clashes with financial pressure. Because according to several commentators, analysts, insiders, and former supporters, the Sussex business model may be struggling under the weight of its own expectations. The financial figures alone are shocking. When Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties, many believed they were entering a powerful new chapter. Netflix reportedly signed them to a huge agreement once publicly valued near $100 million. Spotify joined the mix. Harry's memoir, Spare, became one of the fastest-selling nonfiction books ever released. Meghan was expected to build a major lifestyle empire. Harry was expected to evolve into a global public figure with enormous speaking opportunities. Instead, years later, many of the major income streams connected to the Sussex name now appear reduced, scaled back, canceled, or far less successful than originally expected. Spotify ended after only one season. Netflix projects reportedly became smaller.
The big name sponsor is now pulling out of the event. You've heard me right. Boeing, one of the biggest companies in the world, are done. They are out. They've checked out of the project.
The Polo series faded from public conversation. Better Up, once presented as a major part of Harry's future business image, has almost disappeared from headlines entirely. Meanwhile, the couple's expenses reportedly never slowed down. Their Montecito property alone is said to carry mortgage payments close to $100,000 every month. Property taxes reportedly reach enormous yearly totals. Security costs, considered necessary for globally recognized public figures, are estimated to run into the millions annually. And unlike active royals, Harry and Meghan no longer have the institution covering those expenses behind the scenes. Every dollar now depends on business success. That changes the entire equation because royal life and celebrity life operate in completely different ways.
Invictus is a brilliant idea, and it's done great stuff. But there are big problems financially which could destroy the whole project. And be clear, no Invictus, no Harry.
Inside the monarchy, visibility is carefully controlled. Limited appearances create mystery. Public exposure stays managed. Institutional prestige carries much of the burden. Hollywood works the opposite way. Hollywood demands non-stop attention, non-stop engagement, non-stop visibility. And according to critics who once defended the Sussexes, that exact pressure may now be weakening the brand from the inside out. Former media ally Dan Wakeford, a man once connected to positive coverage surrounding Meghan, delivered what may be the toughest public assessment yet. His conclusion was blunt and direct. Harry and Meghan have become overexposed, not mysterious, not aspirational, just exhausting to some audiences. Wakeford argued that every appearance, every interview, every overseas tour, every lifestyle relaunch, and every carefully planned media moment slowly weakened the one thing luxury branding depends on most: scarcity. And the pattern is becoming harder to ignore. At one stage, Harry and Meghan were treated like rare global exclusives. Now they seem to appear everywhere. Podcasts, streaming specials, backyard videos, lifestyle campaigns, jam promotions, candle launches, speeches, commentary panels, international visits, magazine features, and public events. According to critics, the Sussexes slowly shifted from premium public figures into non-stop content creators. That may create headlines, but headlines are not the same as prestige, and prestige is what builds billion-dollar brands.
Their outgoings, eye-watering fixed costs, housing, and the Montecito mansion. They bought the place for just under $15 million. It was money they didn't have. They took out a massive mortgage, around $10 million, monthly mortgage payments, $100,000 a month, which, yes, they've got a few million in the bank, but you're going to feel that, $100,000 a month. Annual property taxes, $280,000. Maintenance for the 9-bedroom, 16-bathroom estate, the pool, the tennis courts, the Kai pond, the grounds. Because don't forget, Meghan's not doing that gardening. Oh, my husband. It's amazing on my TV show, With Love, Meghan. It was very incredible how I managed to collect all of the vegetables from my garden and all of the fruit. They were incredibly clean and everything was in season on the same day, which is totally how nature works.
One example critics focused on came during Meghan's latest lifestyle launch. According to several analysts mentioned across media discussions, parts of the rollout appeared to suggest weaker demand instead of massive excitement from buyers. One wine promotion reportedly encouraged customers to buy multiple bottles before completing checkout. To everyday shoppers, that may not sound unusual, but branding experts reportedly saw it differently. Luxury brands usually reduce supply when demand is high. They typically do not rely on larger purchase requirements to help move products. And this is where Meghan's branding situation becomes especially interesting. Even many critics admit she still has real commercial potential. She has global recognition, fashion influence, strong media experience, and public visibility that many business owners would love to have. But according to branding commentators, the issue is not fame, the issue is positioning. Critics argue Meghan continues promoting a version of herself that does not fully match public perception. Instead of building a bold, ambitious, high-status celebrity image, they say she keeps leaning toward a softer lifestyle persona focused on homemade products, wellness themes, organic cooking, and carefully polished garden aesthetics. That stands in sharp contrast to years of reports describing her as extremely driven, strategic, and highly ambitious behind the scenes. And critics believe that disconnect may now be creating serious business problems. Audiences can usually tell when branding feels overly manufactured. The Kardashian empire works because the image and the business strategy openly match each other. The ambition is part of the brand itself. But with Meghan, critics argue the public sees two very different images at the same time. The calm, humanitarian lifestyle figure presented publicly, alongside reports of difficult management issues, frequent staff changes, and aggressive business decisions happening privately.
That they're furious and don't want to be associated with the toxic Sussex brand, which has happened at Sentivale, Harry's horrible hot mess of a charity over which he's now lost control.
That contradiction has become increasingly difficult for commentators to ignore, especially because staff turnover connected to the Sussex operation has remained one of the biggest recurring stories over the past several years. Observers continue pointing to the unusually large number of aides, communications staff, PR advisors, and executives who reportedly resigned, quietly left, or were replaced. And unlike rumors, turnover creates a visible pattern. One business commentator even referenced a reported retention figure near 3.7%, which would be considered extremely low by corporate standards if accurate.
Good on Harry. He's doing what he wants to do to live this life. And we all know that he went to California and they went to LA and hired 3 PR firms, and the rest is history. But Mark, what I think is the saddest is they squandered what the Queen had high hopes for, our beloved Queen Elizabeth, and that was for them to be in the Commonwealth. And they could have been such a benefit to the Commonwealth countries. And yes, I think there's a lot of tension from everything I hear everywhere And I think the saddest part is you can see the sadness in Harry's eyes.
That matters because employee behavior can reveal problems leadership tries hard to keep hidden. Stable organizations usually retain strong talent. Unstable environments often lose people quickly. And the situation became even more intense when older workplace allegations connected to Meghan returned to public discussion again. Jason Knopf's internal email, which reportedly raised concerns about staff treatment during his time as communications secretary, pushed the conversation far beyond simple rumors. Suddenly, this was no longer just tabloid speculation. There were documented claims, timelines, internal discussions, and specific allegations being referenced publicly.
There are also reports now that the planned drama series about polo is not happening, and Harry's rates for public speaking have gone from $1 million per speech to $50,000. Now that sounds like quite a lot of money, 50K. You and I would take that all day long, but Hillary Fordwich tells me this is a pathetic amount of money for the son of the King of the United Kingdom.
Then came the moments critics could not stop analyzing online. Tense exchanges during public tours, uncomfortable camera shots, awkward interactions with staff members, and visible pressure during major appearances. On their own, each moment may not have meant much, but together they started building a much larger narrative. And in celebrity culture, narratives can shape everything, but even those controversies may not compare to the bigger issue now surrounding Invictus, because Invictus was always viewed differently. Unlike streaming deals, podcast contracts, or celebrity branding campaigns, Invictus gave Harry something much more important: credibility connected to military service, recovery, veterans, and public purpose beyond entertainment. Even some critics who disagreed with Harry still respected the Invictus mission. That is why the newest reports are creating so much attention. Several reports now suggest major sponsors could be stepping back ahead of the Birmingham Games. Boeing, one of the world's biggest corporations, reportedly may not continue involvement after previously supporting Invictus-related efforts. And whether that decision is connected to wider controversies or not, the optics look rough. Large corporations usually do not walk away from stable, low-risk charitable organizations without serious consideration, especially companies with enormous financial resources. At the same time, public scrutiny surrounding Invictus finances has reportedly grown much stronger. Questions are now being raised about operational expenses, government support, sponsorship concerns, executive compensation, travel spending, and the high overall cost per participant compared to other veterans programs in different countries.
Was considered at its peak to be $60 million. That was after the Spare Book, the Netflix deal, and Harry's inheritances. Well, it's our understanding, and I've spoken to a financial expert who knows about the world of accountancy and managing finances, who has said that that figure now is more likely to be $35 million.
One analysis comparing Invictus costs to similar rehabilitation competitions reportedly found major financial differences. Critics immediately started asking difficult questions. How much funding is directly helping veterans? And how much is supporting the large-scale production surrounding the games themselves? And this is where the situation becomes especially serious for Harry. Because if Invictus faces long-term controversy, Harry risks losing the one project that still gives him broad public support. Without Invictus, critics ask what remains. Royal relationships remain strained. Several Hollywood connections appear distant. Spotify is gone. Speaking opportunities reportedly weakened. Public approval ratings have fallen sharply. And according to polling frequently discussed by commentators, the contrast with the monarchy itself has become increasingly obvious. While Harry's support in Britain reportedly sits near 30%, support for the monarchy as an institution remains far higher. William and Catherine continue receiving strong polling numbers. King Charles, despite health concerns and political pressure, still maintains institutional authority and public recognition.
So Harry needed a public relations makeover, and Invictus has been one of the rare good news stories for Harry, but it looks like it's going sour.
That reality weakens the original Sussex strategy entirely, because the original plan appeared simple: step away from royal life, build independent global influence, and eventually compete with the institution itself through modern celebrity power and massive media reach. Instead, years later, the monarchy remains stable, while the alternative model appears increasingly uncertain. And perhaps the most alarming part for critics is the timeline itself. Commentators are no longer talking about possible future problems in vague terms. They are now openly discussing financial sustainability. Not decades, years. years before reserve funding could reportedly become a major concern if new revenue streams are not rebuilt. And many analysts believe that explains the non-stop pace of launches, public appearances, media relaunches, overseas visits, lifestyle campaigns, rapid business pivots, and the constant push to stay visible in the spotlight. Because when a celebrity empire depends on non-stop exposure to support an extremely expensive lifestyle, stepping away from the spotlight is no longer easy. And yet, according to some former allies, pulling back may actually be the only move that could still help them recover. What makes this entire situation so surprising is that Harry and Meghan were never expected to struggle like this. They entered the public market with advantages almost no modern celebrity couple had ever combined at the same time. Royal status, worldwide fame, elite media support, powerful business connections, Hollywood access, political influence, billionaire neighbors, massive publicity, and recognition connected to one of the most famous institutions on Earth. And despite all of that, the Sussex operation now appears stuck inside a cycle that several analysts describe as difficult to sustain long-term. Because the more closely people examine the mechanics behind the brand, the more one uncomfortable reality keeps standing out. Nearly every major move since Megxit appears to have reduced their leverage instead of increasing it. Take the Netflix agreement. In the beginning, the headline figure alone created massive attention. Reports of a $100 million deal instantly placed Harry and Meghan among the entertainment industry elite, but giant Hollywood numbers can often be misleading. Most large deals are tied to production targets, release schedules, renewals, development requirements, overhead costs, and performance expectations. And that detail matters because long-term influence in Hollywood is not built by signing a deal. It is built by repeatedly creating successful content strong enough to expand that deal over time. That never fully happened.
No major new corporate sponsors are part of Archwell either. The corporate world cannot stand Harry and Meghan. We know that from Sente Barley, the charity that Harry co-founded in the memory of his mother Diana, because it was Dr. Sophie Chandauka who revealed that they were struggling to get sponsorship and to get corporate support because Harry and Meghan were so toxic as a brand. In particular, it was Audi.
The Oprah interview generated huge worldwide attention at first. The Harry and Meghan documentary created buzz because audiences wanted insight into royal life. Spare sold rapidly because it promised major revelations. But after the initial curiosity faded, one difficult question started spreading through the entertainment industry. What exactly is the long-term Sussex product? And nobody seemed able to answer clearly. 1 month the focus was documentaries, then activism, then podcasts, then family-focused content, then mental health, then wellness, then cooking, then polo, then jam, then luxury lifestyle branding, then political commentary, then social campaigns, then personal storytelling. The brand never fully settled into one strong commercial identity. And that creates a major problem in high-level media economics because audiences invest deeply in brands they can immediately understand.
The only positive in Harry's life is Invictus, and yet it now faces the biggest crisis in its history. And be clear, a crisis for Invictus is a crisis for Harry.
Financially, the couple are a laughingstock in Montecito.
The Obamas built political prestige. The Kardashians built reality entertainment. Gwyneth Paltrow built aspirational wellness. Reese Witherspoon built female-driven production power. Critics argue Harry and Meghan built uncertainty instead. Even supporters reportedly began acknowledging this privately behind the scenes. And nowhere did that confusion become more visible than during the Spotify collapse, because Spotify did not simply end a partnership. Executives publicly criticized the project afterward. Bill Simmons calling them grifters became one of the most damaging moments of the entire post-royal era because it shattered the idea that criticism only existed inside British tabloids. This was criticism coming from Silicon Valley, American media circles, and entertainment insiders. And it carried weight because Spotify executives had first-hand access to the production process itself. That public embarrassment reportedly changed perceptions in Hollywood very quickly. Suddenly, the Sussexes were no longer viewed as untouchable prestige figures. They became viewed by some as risky investments, and inside high-level entertainment business, risky can become a serious problem fast.
And I know people who know people who know people, and they all say the same thing. It's, you know, something's true just when you hear, even if it's second or third hand, ubiquitous feedback. And it's the same thing. She's viewed as a landmine. Nobody knows when she's going to go off. If you bump into her, what's going to go off when. And that I heard, not those exact words, but I heard about, like it's just literal words like, it's too high risk. I think the word probably I heard the most was risk. It's just too high risk. People don't know what she's going to do, how she's going to use them, and then get dumb.
Studios generally avoid constant controversy around productions. Sponsors avoid unpredictable backlash. Corporate boards prefer stability and controlled public relations. Executives especially do not want expensive talent attached to nonstop drama unless the financial return clearly outweighs the risk. That is why the sponsor concerns surrounding Centabal and Invictus are drawing so much attention right now. Because when corporate support starts fading, it sends a message much louder than headlines or gossip stories ever could. Companies make decisions based on risk. If sponsors quietly reduce involvement, avoid renewals, or refuse deeper partnerships, it usually signals concerns about reputation, instability, or weak long-term value. And according to reports discussed across several media broadcasts, that exact pattern now appears to be developing around the Sussex brand.
It's almost unheard of to buy a house in Montecito and just move into it, right? You buy a house and you do like a $7 million remodeling job, right? To make it all up to date. You don't take the sort of, we've seen the insides of the house. Yep. It's hideous. It's absolutely hideous.
The Audi situation became especially revealing. Reports claimed the company stepped away after sponsorship expectations reportedly increased significantly. Whether every reported detail is fully accurate or not, the wider perception damage had already happened. The narrative surrounding Harry and Meghan was no longer centered around glamorous humanitarian influence. Instead, critics say it became a story about expensive expectations attached to declining influence. That perception can become extremely damaging inside elite social circles, especially in Montecito, because Montecito operates through quiet status systems most outsiders never notice. Wealth there is not only about money, it is about projecting stability, exclusivity, and long-term power without needing constant attention. And according to several commentators familiar with the area, Harry and Meghan increasingly project something very different: financial pressure hidden beneath luxury branding. Even the house itself reportedly became part of that discussion. Critics repeatedly pointed out that unlike neighboring billionaires who buy estates and immediately invest millions into renovations, the Sussex property reportedly stayed close to its previous design and appearance.
The Queen, talking about Meghan, not Camilla here, the Queen herself has been public proof of this transit. Here's to reigning again. And Queen was even with an uppercase Q. Totally nuts. Now, Hilary Rose in the Times newspaper expressed a lot of the anger that the Sussex Survivors Club are feeling about this, asking the question, really true suffering? The past 7 years?
To average people, that may sound unimportant, but in Montecito culture, it reportedly carries meaning. Renovations act as status symbols. They signal that someone not only has enough wealth to buy into the neighborhood, but also enough extra liquidity to fully transform the property afterward. According to commentators, failing to do that becomes noticeable very quickly among ultra-wealthy circles. And this is where financial pressure starts colliding directly with psychology, because maintaining elite status becomes incredibly expensive once institutional support disappears. Security teams, legal advisors, PR firms, staff salaries, private schooling, luxury travel, management companies, production expenses, taxes, and mortgage payments. All while trying to maintain the image of unlimited success and total control. That image alone reportedly becomes a full-time operation. And the legal disputes only increased the pressure further. Harry's lawsuits created another major contradiction inside the Sussex narrative.
No major new corporate sponsors are part of Archwell either. The corporate world cannot stand Harry and Meghan. We know that from Centabal, the charity that Harry co-founded in the memory of his mother Diana, because it was Dr. Sophie Chandalkar who revealed that they were struggling to get sponsorship and to get corporate support because Harry and Meghan were so toxic as a brand. In particular, it was Audi.
On one side, the couple publicly criticized invasive media culture. On the other side, critics argued they continuously generated enormous publicity themselves through court cases, memoir releases, interviews, documentaries, and public allegations at levels rarely seen from modern royal figures. The legal process also created another issue: discovery. Court proceedings can generate emails, documents, witness statements, timelines, private communications, and internal records. Every new filing reportedly extended media scrutiny deeper into the Sussex world. Some of the most difficult public moments reportedly emerged directly from these legal proceedings, including disputed testimony discussions and resurfaced communications critics argued conflicted with earlier public statements. The result is that Harry and Meghan now appear to face pressure from nearly every direction at once. Financial pressure, reputational pressure, corporate pressure, institutional pressure, media pressure, and perhaps most dangerous of all, expectation pressure. Because they were once presented as the future, the modern version of royalty, the billion-dollar alternative, the globally admired reformers who would move beyond palace life and build something even bigger independently. Instead, years later, they now face constant questions about declining influence, shrinking business partnerships, falling approval numbers, and reduced financial flexibility, while the royal institution they left behind continues operating without major disruption. And for many critics watching this unfold, that may be the harshest reality of all. And then there is the question almost nobody inside the Sussex circle seems able to answer anymore.
Well, I have always said you can tell the success of the business and you can tell the type of business people run and the quality of the leaders by the people that work for them and their retention rate. You can always tell everything. Like if I go to a business and the receptionist is warm and lovely and wonderful to me, I know she or he is treated really well.
And they've been there for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. What's the retention and how do they treat you? Because that's how they're treated, right?
If the royal connection is still the main thing generating worldwide attention, what happens when audiences finally grow tired of hearing about royal drama altogether? Because that possibility is starting to look very real. Nearly every major commercial success Harry and Meghan achieved after leaving royal life has been connected in some way to discussing, referencing, criticizing, or monetizing royal access. The Oprah interview exploded because audiences expected private palace stories. The Netflix documentary gained traction because it promised insider conflict and behind-the-scenes tension. Spare became a publishing sensation because Harry shared deeply personal family disagreements, military stories, arguments with William, conversations with Charles, and private details the public had never heard before.
No, what if she'd actually talked to us about how she keeps that figure and what she does at her age to look that good? That would be really authentic. I'd be interested. I think most people will be interested. Doesn't everybody want to look young and slim and attractive? So she actually has something, but she's either dreadfully badly advised and or she has no clue about the business world, branding and or marketing.
But there is an obvious limit to that strategy. A memoir only works once. Repeated family conflict eventually loses its shock factor, and audiences begin asking whether there is anything left beyond frustration and complaints. That question is becoming increasingly dangerous because the Sussexes now appear trapped between two difficult choices. Option 1, stop discussing the royal family completely, but if that happens, critics argue they risk losing the very thing that still makes them commercially unique. Option 2, continue revealing more personal details and accusations. But every new escalation reportedly damages the possibility of reconciliation while also wearing down public sympathy at the same time. It becomes a damaging cycle, and many insiders believe the royal family fully understands that dynamic. Notice how carefully Buckingham Palace has handled the situation throughout years of headlines. Very little direct public retaliation, very few emotional interviews, very little visible panic. Instead, the institution continued moving forward with state visits, diplomatic events, ceremonies, military appearances, charity work, and international tours. While Harry and Meghan created headlines, the monarchy projected continuity and structure. That distinction matters far more than many people realize, because institutions survive by appearing stable during chaos. And compared to the turbulence surrounding the Sussex operation, the monarchy now appears calmer, quieter, and far more disciplined than it did during the explosive period immediately after Megxit.
The only positive in Harry's life is Invictus, and yet it now faces the biggest crisis in its history. And be clear, a crisis for Invictus is a crisis for Harry.
Even polling trends reportedly reflect this shift. At one stage, global sympathy strongly favored Harry and Meghan. Younger audiences especially viewed them as modern figures challenging an outdated institution. But over time, non-stop conflict appears to have changed the emotional mood. not necessarily because public support suddenly shifted fully toward the monarchy, but because constant outrage eventually exhausts people. Audiences stop reacting emotionally when controversy becomes permanent background noise. And that may explain why some commentators now describe the Sussex brand as emotionally overloaded. Nearly every project arrives carrying intense emotional themes: betrayal, trauma, survival, healing, accountability, truth-sharing, and personal struggle. But brands built entirely around emotional intensity often struggle to create lighter, broader, and more commercially flexible identities later on. That is one reason Meghan's lifestyle transition has reportedly faced skepticism. Consumers dealing with inflation, housing pressure, and economic uncertainty can be difficult to connect with through luxury candles, curated wellness branding, and elite California aesthetics promoted from inside a multi-million-dollar estate protected by private security.
This is absolutely disastrous for Harry. Harry's Invictus nightmare. With the Netflix broadcasting contract up in smoke, with Harry's rate for speaking engagements having gone from $1 million per appearance to $50,000, with the horrible fake royal trip to Australia having been a public relations dumpster fire, the only positive in Harry's life is Invictus, and yet it now faces the biggest crisis in its history. And be clear, a crisis for Invictus is a crisis for Harry.
The optics reportedly became even more uncomfortable during overseas appearances that critics described negatively. Highly publicized visits to emotionally sensitive locations were sometimes followed almost immediately by online commercial promotions. For critics, those moments summarized the entire issue perfectly. Humanitarian messaging mixed awkwardly with influencer-style monetization. And now, according to commentators, the pressure is building even faster. Invictus faces increasing scrutiny. Corporate sponsors reportedly appear cautious. Hollywood enthusiasm has cooled. Relationships remain fractured, legal battles continue, expenses continue rising, and for the first time since Megxit, even several former allies are no longer talking about expansion or global domination. They are talking about survival. Because the original promise behind the Sussex era was simple: global celebrity power would eventually become more influential than the monarchy itself. But years later, the monarchy still appears permanent, while the Sussex business model increasingly appears uncertain and temporary.